Yeah, hi folks. Today I want to comment on a couple of parts of the recent Ben Shapiro Tucker Carlson interview. Now I've posted a link to the entire interview because I think it's really worth watching because it kind of mirrors what's happening in New Zealand. Anyway, here's part one.
I think that there are a couple issues that you mentioned there, and I might want to bifurcate them for purposes of the discussion. So issue number one is sort of the free speech issue. People should be able to say what they want. People should be able to lead their families how they want to lead them. There we're in complete agreement.
Right.
And I think that the unity of the right is largely based on agreement on this particular point.
That's right. The foundational questions without which none of the rest is possible.
Right.
And free expression would be one, of course, and freedom of conscience.
Right. And you talk a lot in Ship of Fools, particularly about the threat to these sorts of ideas from a left that is focused on a sort of forced diversity. And you've been labeled racist by folks at Media Matters for this, of course, because they label everyone a racist. I'm a Nazi, according to Media Matters, because of my yarmulke, apparently. But your viewpoint on diversity is basically, as I see it expressed in the book, that diversity is a neutral. It's not good or bad inherently. It's not a value.
It's a description.
Right. And so where do you see the conflict lying between right and left on that particular issue?
So where I agree with you is that, while, as I noted, I am distrustful of complex ideologies, I do think that you need to start with certain things that you believe are true and act on them if you want to get to the place you desire to be. So what I just noticed, just as an American, and I'm not an intellectual, I'm a talk show host, so this is a very obvious thing, that our national motto has been redefined to its mirror image. So of course it was out of many, one. And now it is diversity is our strength. So I think it's fair if you, without asking my consent, replace the core principle of our country. It's fair for me to ask if that principle is worth organizing a country around. So I'll just ask the obvious question, is diversity our strength? And of course, like so much they say, it's not only untrue, it's the opposite of what is true. It is never true that diversity is our strength.
It is never true that diversity is a strength, and he's 100% correct there. Because diversity divides nations. It is tribalism. It is nothing more than tribalism. It does not unify people. It pits people against each other. It divides nations.
Or all kinds of diversity, but they're not our strength. So in other words, is it true in your marriage? The less you have in common with your wife, the stronger your marriage is?
Yeah,
we don't even speak
exactly.
the same language. That's why we love each other so much. Is it true in your business? We don't know what we're all doing it. Is it true in the military? You don't know. It's insane, actually.
Yeah.
It's the opposite, once again, of what is true, what is observably true. So I just noted that. And by the way, at the same time I noted it, as I did, 50 nights in the past 200 nights, I made the case explicitly against racism, which is you are not responsible for your immutable qualities. You can't control your height, your hair color, your DNA.
Exactly.
What your parents did. None of that is your fault, and you should not be punished for it or rewarded for it.
Exactly. Punished for it or rewarded for it.
Is an argument against racism, explicitly. And so for that, I'm a racist. It's like, no, you don't understand. I'm arguing against all kinds of racism. I think it's a really dangerous way to see the world. And anyway, whatever. They don't mean anything they say. They throw at you the very things that they are doing in order to silence you. And I just happen for this brief window of my life to have the freedom to say what I think is true, and I'm going to.
It seems to me that this is actually the major rift in American politics. And I want to get to your economics in a second, because I think there we actually have some substantive disagreements.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of talk these days about political realignment. And I wonder if it's not really political realignment that's taking place, but a hunkering down of the far left into the diversity politics, identity politics, and then just the backlash to that. Because it seems to me that was the real dividing line between Obama and Trump, is not even on economics, where in some areas there's actually some sort of populist agreement, but it's really on these sort of cultural divisions where President Obama was basically saying, we can be divided into various ethnic groups, all of whom have been victimized by America, and then we can create a coalition of the dispossessed to come back in and sweep into power, and the new demographic shift will basically buoy our boat all the way to victory from now until the end of time. And then the backlash to that was, well, wait a second. You guys don't get to do identity politics when you've been saying that identity politics is what's wrong with America for generations correctly.
Exactly.
So why are you doing that now?
Well, as a practical matter, it just doesn't work. I mean, countries don't hang together by accident, particularly large, diverse ones that don't have a majority in any category. So if you don't even have a shared language or history or culture, why would you why would you remain united as a country? And the answer, which I actually believe in, is that you could hang together around a common idea, a common set of beliefs. Here's what we're all for. But our ruling class, and I do think this is the least responsible, the most reckless thing they have done, is they have not only failed to come up with what that set of common beliefs is, they have argued against the fact that it should exist.
Yes, they've argued against the fact that it should exist. And they've done that through multiculturalism.
And so, and what they're doing clearly is, it's not complicated. They're dividing in order to rule, of course, what the British did in India.
Exactly. Because multicultures are easier to control than one unified culture.
But that's the shortest term thinking. That's like day trader thinking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what do you think are those common ideals? You say that, there's certain things that you think are just basic to being American. What are those common ideas?
I guess I'd start with the Bill of Rights. That's not hard. Do you know what I mean? Since it is a founding document, it's the foundational document. But I think, look, you'll notice the book is long on diagnostics and short on solutions, because that reflects who I am and what I do. I'm not a policymaker at all. I'm an observer. I'm not a deep systematic thinker. Again, I'm a talk show host.
Right.
So I'm pretty good at telling you what I think is wrong. It's not as clear how you fix it other than go back to the obvious things. Like demand that everybody who comes to this country for economic opportunity, for example, or for the safety of our rule of law, also buy into the things that make all of us Americans.
Exactly true. And that should also apply to us in New Zealand. Anyone coming into our country should abide by our ideals. But no, we have multiculturalism and biculturalism. We have tribalism in this country. And yet we should be having people that come into this country should be following a set of ideals that belong to all of us.
It's not complicated, really. So I would start with the Bill of Rights. You have.
Actually, I'll skip to part 2 right now.
Hits the metal. You talk in the book about technology and how it's shifting and taking away jobs from folks. Yes. And you make specific reference to truck driving and the fact that there are going to be these automated cars on the roads. So would you, Tucker Carlson, be in favor of restrictions on the ability of trucking companies to use this sort of technology specifically to, sort of artificially maintain the number of jobs that are available in the trucking industry?
Are you joking? In a second. In other words, if I were president, when I say to DOT, to Department of Transportation, we're not letting driverless trucks on the road, period. Why? Really simple. Driving for a living is the single most common job for high school educated men in this country, in all 50 states. By the way, that's the same group whose wages have gone down by 11% over the past 30 years. The social cost of eliminating their jobs in a 10-year span, 5-year span, 30-year span is so high that it's not sustainable. So the greater good is protecting your citizens from, look, capitalism is the best economic system I can think of, I think that anyone's ever thought of. But that doesn't mean that it's a religion and everything about it is good.
No, but
there's no Nicene Creed of capitalism that I have to buy into. What I care about is living in a country where, decent people can live happy lives, actually. And so, no, I would say immediately, no, are you joking? And I maybe would make up some pretext for public consumption, like, oh, they're dangerous. The technology's not quite finessed. No. But the truth would be, I don't want to put 10 million men out of work because you're going to have 10 million dead families, and the cascading effect from that will wreck your country.
And he's 100% correct there. And no one is asking that question about these driverless vehicles. Driverless vehicles is happening overnight, far too fast for any economy to handle. It'll destroy economies around the world. But I think there's even a bigger question than that, and that is this. The people who control the computers that control the cars control you. Think about that. They will control every aspect of your life. When you no longer know how to drive, you will no longer have freedom. And there's also an aspect of terrorism involved here as well. Imagine what it would be like if terrorists got hold of this.